All right. Welcome to a special edition past my normal bedtime. And I am currently up a little bit late because I had a little bit too much caffeine today because I was making up some hours because I went to an acupuncture appointment this morning, which took about 3 hours. So I stayed up pretty late. So I decided tomorrow, when April and I are going to look at some apartments to move a little bit closer to work, that I would do our weekend live stream because I'm not gonna have time tomorrow, and I'm up and I'm trying to drink water, get this caffeine the hell out my system. So excuse the nighttime attire. Let me cover myself up here, boys. Ladies, enjoy. So if you guys haven't been to the weekend live stream before, typically we do these on Saturdays, but as I mentioned, the reason why we're doing it today, and I'd like to start off with a question for why we let some people funnel in here, and then the point of the AMAs and the weekend live streams is to provide some guidance, provide some mentoring, answer your questions really on a once a week basis. And then, of course, if you want more personalized answers, you want a one-on-one, I do one-on-one mentoring sessions for a paid rate, right? So today's question is something that's going on in my professional life, and out of respect for my employer and the people I work with, I'm not going to go into too much detail. But how do you handle unprofessional people? So one of the things about me is I'm a pretty laid back guy. I try to have fun. I try to make sure that most people I work with enjoy my presence, right? And but all at the same time, try being professional. I want to let my team know that, hey, I'm let my coworkers know that, hey, you can count on me, essentially, and that I'm gonna try and put the best foot forward. And when you have that professionalism, when you do need some help, it's you've paid it forward, and so on and so forth. So how do you handle unprofessional people? People who aren't doing their job on a regular basis. I'm not talking about for a week. Everyone has their ups and downs in life. In my personal case, I've been working with somebody for about 2 months that is just very unprofessional in many ways. Missed meetings, missed requirements, just not essentially doing their job at times, having to follow up with them multiple times to get a response, things like that, things that are really just not acceptable in my opinion. So what do you do about that? How do you handle it? Well, I think the first thing you do is, the first couple times it happens, you don't worry about it, right? You give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I feel like if you're always on the edge and you're ready to start popping off on somebody, no one likes that, right? You don't know what's happened. And I'm talking about maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times, the first week or so. You say, okay, well, something's going on. Maybe there's some deadlines. Who knows why they're not getting back to me? So you have that aspect, and you have to have that outlook on life. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, after you've given them the benefit of the doubt, you kindly, and by the way, when you do give them the benefit of the doubt, you can kindly via vocally through email. I recommend through email. The reason for it is so that you can have documented evidence, essentially, of, hey, I'd appreciate it if we agreed to this. If you could just try your best to accomplish these things, to follow the process that is in order that everyone agreed on, so on and so forth. Now, at this point, you're probably dealing with someone who's just not very professional, and you're starting to realize it after several times. So what do you do from then? And when that doesn't work, right? Well, I don't go to their superiors. I go to mine, right? I sort of explain the situation. You stay professional on your own work, and I've had this happen twice in my professional career. Once at my current workplace, currently, and then at a previous workplace, and it was kind of handled the same way. I made my one-on-one. Hey, can you please handle this? This is an issue for me. This is not what we agreed upon. So on, so forth, right? No need to get anybody else involved. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, when it's clear that you're not going to be listened to, you start documenting, right, through email, which maybe you started in the very beginning, no problem. Now, if it continues, um, you it's really sort of, and it might be uncomfortable, but you go to your direct superior, who hopefully is very open minded about this. Sometimes it's easier said than done, right? So you go to your direct superior and ask what they would do, and maybe they'll talk to their superior, maybe they won't. Sometimes they'll sort of tell you what I said. Well, have you tried asking? Have you tried saying this is an issue? Start documenting it, and then when the when you explain that that doesn't work, oftentimes what they'll say is, "Please CC me on there." It's like, "Hey, let's throw that big dick manager, the big dick boss signature on it to let you know, like, hey, man, not only is this getting documented, but it's getting documented in some managers' emails. So you're not the only one getting looked on, and it's kind of unfortunate, right? Because as a professional, right, you expect other people to be professionals, and it's kind of sad when you have to assign babysitters, really, because that's what it ends up being, right? When you have an email that only has one person that needs to be on it, realistically, and you have to start CCing other people on it, you're basically showing them that you are CCing your superiors on there, show that you are doing the right thing and handling it and letting them know, right? You're not hiding. It's not BCC. If you're not familiar with email, so essentially you can send emails, right? And you can CC people, which everyone involved sees, and then you can BCC, which essentially hides the email from the person you're sending it to. So you're CCing them because you want them to see that. You're like, hey, managers are being CC'd on here just to sort of keep you in check. And it's so strange when you have to get to that level because as I mentioned, I'm a pretty lighthearted guy for the most part. I make jokes and I try to, be able to take criticism as well as give it. But when we have to start having babysitters, this is when it, it's so very strange. So um, that's today's topic is how to essentially handle unprofessional people. Really, sort of the process is you give them the benefit of the doubt. You politely request that they do what is, I guess, considered normal or expected, and probably document it. I mean, the first time, having a conversation, like, hey, man, appreciate if you make the meeting that you set up or whatever it may be. Um, and then reach out to, and if that doesn't happen after one time, you just start sending emails to you. It happens again or another time, 2, 3 times. You eventually just you go to your boss. Hopefully you have documentation, CC, all this sort of stuff, because it does affect the outcome of projects. It does affect stress levels, frustrations, right? I was so frustrated about it that I started accept talking to as a developer, you get tons of recruiters and stuff like that, where you start taking phone calls. I sort of looked at the situation and said, I don't really want to leave. I'm very happy at where I'm at. I'm just very unhappy with this one particular situation. And so that's also another reason I want to make this video, because you may be frustrated by people in your work environment who are unprofessional or things like that. And I have, this is probably the first company I've worked with that I would want to stay with for a short little while, which is strange. But it was a very strange thing the last 2, 3 weeks where you start taking phone calls because you're so frustrated by the situation and you're like, how can I handle this better? Um, and then you start looking a little bit differently at things. So if you are in that situation, really, I think James says it best: is stay professional, focus on your work, and just document it. Really, at the end of the day, you just keep documenting it, and eventually, what happens is, you can only get by so often with so much. So that's sort of my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on Colt Still's web developer course? Any glaring holes you may not cover? I'm not familiar enough with it. The iOS store is rejecting hybrid apps. What a bunch of haters. Um, I'm not too familiar with the mobile hybrid app market. I do think that's kind of lame, though. I think it's really lame. How do you handle changes in scope that affect the deadlines when changes are made by one person, others hounding you to get it done? This is another interesting thing. So I have this saying at work that deadlines, much like unicorns, are both imaginary. The reason I say that, not to go too much into the company culture, things like that, which is where the unicorn comes from. But so deadlines are something that people make up 9 times out of 10. There's no real reason a deadline needs to exist for a lot of things. And it's not developers who are often making the deadlines. It's not, it's usually management. Choose a number, say, hey, 3 months, we want this. Okay, well, we got 5 other things going on. So sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And very rarely is it like, oh, we have a big press announcement. Oh, we have a big event. It's, so it's hard because I'll give you a very perfect example. I'm building a reporting application. I thought I was building it for one report type, at least in the short term, right? So typically when you're working on projects, there's usually multiple phases. There's the first phase, the second phase, third phase. You do multiple iterations. You build it out basic. You build it. It progressively gets more complex. And so I thought I was in phase one, which was because maybe I misunderstood the requirements. Maybe the requirements were good enough. Things happen, you adjust. But the difference in terms of scope of the project required me to put in probably an extra day of work, extra full day of work, right? So set myself behind a little bit. So what do I do? Well, sometimes you rise to the occasion. Sometimes you miss those deadlines. In my case, I rise to the occasion. I'm not one. I like to play. Here's the thing, guys. I like to tell my PMs I don't give a fuck about the deadlines, but because I try to set expectations low. So this is you want. I'm gonna drop some knowledge, right? Yeah, knowledge on you guys right now. Under promise and over deliver. All right, this very simple concept. And even as someone who tries to have that mindset, I make the mistake of not over promising and under delivering, because we all like to think that we can you really, as a developer, get 25 to 30 hours of actual coding in a week, probably closer to 25. 15 hours are consumed by meetings and other things that go along with being a developer. And of those 25 hours, you're going to have maybe code reviews as part of it. So there's 5 hours at, an hour a day gone. You might have other aspects that are still programming related going from there. You might need to, work with the back end or the front end. So all that stuff happens. And it's so hard to, as a developer, say, yeah, I think it's a weak thing. And then you get into it and you're like, oh shit, I didn't know about these 7 features that you just assumed were part of it, right? Or it's very strange. So I will say that I've worked with one PM, and I've been very happy with the project deadlines. So I'm sad to see her go. She has been promoted. She's doing a very good job. I have nothing but respect for her. But that's one thing I will say is that in the 7 or 8 months that I've been here, I don't think I've felt too much pressure on delivering by deadlines. So I'm very happy with that on a side note. So deadlines are something that's very strange because they often come from people you don't even know exist or you don't even talk to. And honestly, I would have no problem. And this is kind of strange. This is stepping out of the developer wheelhouse. I have this joke, but it's kind of true. was talking with another PM. I said, "Is this true? Are you guys basically a buffer for it?" PMs are basically a buffer for developers, right? PMs are this is my theory. This is my theory. Now, some PMs will agree with this, some may not. But PMs are a buffer for the business to the developer, and part of that being that buffer is taking the heat, right? So being able to, essentially get yelled at times, so the developers can get done, and they essentially take not necessarily take the blame, but they take the frustration. They take the, I tell you, I've seen a lot of PMs who will pressure developers to deliver something because they don't want to have to go back for a second or a third time and say, look, it got delayed by a week. It got delayed by 2 weeks. Why that is probably just because I don't want to get yelled at. that's my career thing. I don't blame them either. So I've been very lucky in that aspect. I'm very happy with that. But a lot of people aren't. I've seen other developers and it's a very common thing where you're getting pressured to get things done. And even oftentimes you're like, oh yeah, I could get this done in 3 days, no problem. But everything is always more simple till you get into it. Even if you try applying for it, right? And nothing ever goes according to plan. That's why I personally don't get very upset if requirements are off. I don't personally get very upset if features get added, because nothing's ever perfect. And, we don't take a bunch of time to do all that sort of stuff because oftentimes you can't predict any of it until you're actually in it, right? The things that surprise you, and there's very little workaround of that. And that goes for the front end or the back end, right? I had a coworker today, working, usually Fridays are kind of a slow day for me. But working like till the last minute he was leaving for the weekend to get something done for me so I can continue working. And we had to involve, the BI team and everything else. And, sometimes you have those days, right? But as a team, you sort of work through it and you go through it. And the hope is that it's more days than not that things aren't like that, right? And what it basically was just some miscommunication and requirements, one way or the other. And then, but what do? You don't throw your hands up in the air and, oh, I'm so frustrated. Oh, I'm gonna cry. You say, okay, well, let's just take care of it real quick and we'll get it done. And then, whatever happens. Let's see here. So I think that was a very long answer for how you let scope creep affect your deadlines. How am I? I'm pretty good, man. I'm a little juiced up on the caffeine though. I should be drinking more water while I'm talking here to you guys. Life is good. I've been a little frustrated last week or two, which is kind of what the whole topic of the video came from. But overall, I'm kind of frustrated, and it's a little strange. So it's a little strange because talking openly about these things, like a lot of times as an employee, you don't want to tell your boss or you don't want to tell anybody like that like you're a little frustrated with work, a little frustrated with certain people. But here I am, right, saying to 35 people and having a recording of it. And part of it is, if you're open and honest about these things, it's usually better than anything else than keeping things pent up. So it's something I'm working on as well. I'm preparing for a boot camp. Wish me luck. What can I do to prepare? Well, I hope you have about 3 to 6 months. That's really what I recommend for studying for a boot camp. Depending on what they're teaching, they're probably teaching full stack JavaScript. That's what most boot camps are teaching you. Start studying everything that's going to be in the curriculum. It's better to go into these things already knowing how to code and then refining it, getting better, and you'll get more out of it that way. So whatever the subjects are that are there, start learning them today, every day for the next 3 to 6 months. If you're getting started in web dev today, what would you do differently? I'd get started in blockchain. that would be kind of how I would go about it. Your front end and back end skills will transfer over very nicely to blockchain. There's so many jobs in it right now. It's a very interesting field to get into. As far as documentation, do you think it's more advantageous to try your best to refrain from following up with phone calls from the person and stating you rather communicate via email? If you as far as yeah. So I would say just documentation, because oftentimes you can't legally record people without letting them know, and it's kind of a hassle, right? So and most of the time when you're dealing with other people, it's going to be via email, unless you're on the same team or anything else. But yeah, so you definitely want some sort of copy of it, and talking on the phone is not usually going to be the best situation. It's probably better to do it over email, some sort of text, Skype, just anything that keeps track of it. He needs a Red Bull. No, I'm giving up caffeine again, guys. Tonight's the last night. Tutor killer. Hey. What's going on, Program Mafia? That's such a dope name. Scope Creep, gotta love it, right? Ever see someone crack under pressure? Story, please. I've cracked under pressure. Juiced up. Yeah, like not unlike the roids. I mean, Hercules, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, but yeah, I mean, I crack under pressure from time to time. This last week has been a rough week, man. This is probably the longest week I've gone without without coding and like playing around on side projects. That's when I know when I don't want to code like for more than 6 hours. That is when I know something's wrong with me and I'm starting to crack. Because I know who I am for the most part as a person. It's taken 30 fucking years to get there, but you're always changing as a person. But I start realizing these tendencies of I wake up every morning, I work on my stuff, and when I wake up every morning and I go to write my book, I go to work on a course, I go to film a YouTube video, and I don't want to do it, something's wrong. And that's when I start realizing that I've been cracking a little bit and that stuff is bothering me. And but if you're looking for some like epic story of like the PM said, we have to have this out in 2 days, he's like, flip his desk, fuck that, I'm out this bitch. No, I don't have any stories like that. What resources do I find myself coming back to personally throughout your career? YouTube. YouTube is probably the biggest one. Let's see here. What's going on, Ricky? It's nice stopping by your live stream earlier, by the way, man. Full stack Java or C Sharp? C Sharp, man. I think C Sharp is going to overtake Java eventually, as crazy as it sounds. But you'll like C Sharp better. C Sharp is more for web dev with .NET. Giving up coffee. I know, dude. I'm such a degenerate. I want to, man. I want to believe. What is a good first project for learning JavaScript? Depends what you want to do, but I think API projects are always good because APIs are such a crucial part of JavaScript. Now, in terms of a project, you're probably going to need to do some algorithms. So that's probably the first thing that happens. I look like a Hugh Hefner program. If I couldn't code, what would I choose instead? Some sort of digital marketing, something where I could work on a computer but it's like so it's such a similar mindset. Something where I'd have a technical skill, and could be SEO, could be some sort of social media marketing, something like that, where I would get started and work on a computer anywhere and still have some sort of skill. But that would probably be it at the end of the day. But it's not really a fair answer, because knowing what I know now, I value those things so much more, because I know what can be accomplished with it, right? So it's very strange in that aspect. But say I didn't know and I didn't value it. I mean, I always wanted to be a writer. My father is a writer. I did several years of journalism. So what about sysadmin? Sysadmin. Let me make sure I understand what a sysadmin is, because I get all those sort of admins. Is that system admin like a network admin? System admin is person who's responsible for upkeep, configuration, right? Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about like server configuration and maintaining it. Yes and no. I mean, it's not a bad industry being. I worked for a while at a data center called Quadranet in Los Angeles, where I was a staff writer, and I have a good friend, Jeff, who basically has been doing it for several years. So here's the thing, and it's kind of counterintuitive, right? So more people than you know. It's system admin sounds tedious. It all sounds tedious, right? The act of programming is tedious in general, so it's all tedious. And you're saying, Dylan, why are you saying it's tedious? Don't you love it? Yes, but like when you could have a single error break your whole application, that's a tedious thing that you're building, right? And that's an everyday occurrence, right? Where one thing where someone doesn't put in a simple type or something in a CRUD system, your whole app just gets, long digged, right? So it's all tedious. Just a system admin version of tedious, of configuring servers and maintaining them, and having networks be correct. That's not your type of tedious, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I mean, my only concern is I feel like a lot of those jobs are going to the cloud. And that's my only real concern, is that it is going to the cloud, right? So so there's so many things getting hired as a service when it comes to networks and stuff like that, that I'm not educated enough to speak on it, but I don't see anything wrong with it. But again, what I base off of a good job, not talking about whether you enjoy it or not. You should enjoy any job I'm making the assumption, the large assumption, that you're only going to work a job that you enjoy. Now, with that being said, you should pick a job that has good career growth, high salaries, and is growing. Lots of jobs, good career growth, and high salaries. So 3 basic things. If they don't have those 3 things, you need to start being worried. Worth learning Python to get an understanding of the basics before jumping into C++? I mean, you could if you want. I don't think it matters. I think you should just dive into one language so and get started. Is the Council on Integrity and Results Reporting trustworthy? I have no idea. Any advice for attending tech meetups for those who just getting into the field. A couple things. One, keep copies of your resume on you when you go. Two, start going much sooner before you're trying to get a job. A lot of times people go right away, right when they're looking for a job. And you come off as desperate. You come off as someone who's trying to use other people a lot of times. Just start attending them regularly, whether you're ready for a job or not. You never know what may happen. And also you'll start building those relationships so that when you are ready, you've been going for 3, 6 months, whatever it may be. You are at the stage where you're like, oh, here is Matthew, and I know Matthew, and we're looking for an intern. We're looking for a junior, and let's give him a shot, right? And you've built up that relationship. You've progressed as a developer. So that would be my one big thing, is that it's always uncomfortable when someone who's not quite ready for a job is applying for a job at a meetup or something like that. And especially if it's like your first time being there and you're just like super hungry. It's almost like how I think women feel when they have super thirsty dudes around all the time, right? It's like, hey, you're just getting all this stuff thrown at you, and a lot of times you're just like, just chill, man. Let's just chill a little bit. We got to do this today, right? You ain't got to go down today. And you need to have the same mentality as someone who's just getting started. iOS is rejecting hybrid app development using the hybrid apps. Yes. Is it still profitable to learn? Ionic, suggest something. I don't have anything to suggest. I have to read up more about it, man. Also, I enjoyed your JavaScript 360 course. Yeah, thank you, man. Hey, that's a good course to make. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna build a part 2 to it eventually. Do I use Git at all? Every day. Every single day. Yes. Yeah, if you watch if you read the Stack Overflow survey, I think it's like 88% or 92% uses Git. So in terms of version control, it has taken over. It has for quite some time, right? So I'm excited, man. So what jobs meet my requirements? Pretty much the easiest thing to check is most technical jobs do. And honestly, any of the top 20 jobs usually will fall into those roles. So if we did like top 20 jobs 2018, right? We just looked it up. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. Glassdoor, best jobs in America. Data scientist, that's a 4.8 out of 5, 110,000 base salary with 4,500 job openings right now in America. DevOps engineer, marketing manager, occupational therapist, look at that. HR manager, electrical engineer, strategy manager, mobile developer, product manager. You'll see a lot of these are in either engineering, tech, or manager-based roles. So many of these are manager-based roles. But anyhow, so what I would do is I would just look at what's in here. About 15 of the top 20 are tech or software related. And you just start looking at, okay, let me learn a little bit more about it. Just a wage increase on the West Coast offset the cost of living. Yes. One thing I would say is that it depends on, sometimes people can't control themselves, right? So can you, let's say I move to Seattle and I get $120,000 salary, which would be, in terms of pure money, significantly more than I make now. But you can get an apartment for $3,000, $4,000. But if you're willing to commute, you can get one for $1,500, right? And so sometimes to offset that cost of living, you just have to commute. You have to find those sort of janky places, and then you could save a lot of money and then go buy a place later on. But so many people live in the now, and I don't blame them. I'm gonna live. I think look. So we're going apartment hunting. There's two things that I want. I want a nicer apartment. It can be smaller, but I want it to be nicer. I don't need a ton of space. I need my office and like a living room, and then of course a bedroom. So we're going from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. I'm okay with 1 bathroom. Look, man. April and I used to sleep on the fucking couch, right? So like, I'm like, yo, we're just a living room, right? We'll just Dolan it up. But so I'm not too worried about that. But I am thinking that for the first time in my adult life, that I will probably just say, you know what, the hell with whatever. I know I can save $300 and get a place that's significantly worse, but maybe I do want the gym. Maybe I do want the sauna, all this sort of stuff, and might treat ourselves to that for the next couple of months, even though we're saving to buy a house, right? So, but I'm also going to be paying so that I can be closer to my work, so I don't have to commute 30 minutes every day. But that's a choice you have to make, right? And so when you are making that choice of living on the West Coast, and you are getting more money, but you are having a higher cost of living, you have to figure out how you can lower that cost of living, even if it's not by a ton, but you're lowering it by 30%, 40%, and you got to invest a little bit of time on commute, or you have to figure out other ways to save money. There are always ways to do it, right? I have friends who are working in SF, and they commute an hour and a half every day, but they pay $1,000 to rent a room, but they're making $10,000 a month, right? So, and they're just saving every penny they can, with the hopes of leaving with a nice little nest egg. You work a year, you're paying $1,000 for rent, probably $2,000-3,000 out of that, food, maybe another $2,000. So $3,000 out of $10,000 after taxes. You're probably paying about $3,000 in taxes. So you're saving about $4,000 a month. You have $50,000 by the end of the year, give or take. And now you have enough for a home payment. Would you say it's worth it if you pace yourself? What do you mean by would I say it's worth it if you pace yourself? Can you suggest a good resource to learn Git? It seems complicated to me. I honestly should just make a Git tutorial. I could explain to you 3/4 of Git in about 20 minutes. I'm going to do it. I'll do it this weekend, maybe on Sunday. For a while, I've been wanting to make like a 10-hour bootcamp course where I just cover 10 topics, 1 hour a piece, that are like all skills you're going to need, just introduction stuff, right? So like an hour JavaScript, hour HTML, CSS, an hour of Git and Markdown, an hour of this and that, and just cover like 20-30 topics, give you 90% of what you're going to use 100% of the time, sort of thing, or 90%, 75% of the time, whatever. You guys get what I'm trying to say, in a course. And this is something that I've been sort of just thinking about for a while now. Maybe that'll be my next course. Do you recommend learning Python and Django? I honestly don't know too much about it. I can say that Python has been continuing to grow beyond belief. An hour of Git is too much. Yeah, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of Git, you're probably good to go. So would an A+ certification be beneficial in applying jobs? It's going to be beneficial. To what degree, who knows, though. But for certain roles, definitely, right? So especially when you're getting started, being a generalist is typically the best way of going about it, because you're going to touch more things and you're going to be able to fill more of those requirements when you need more. You need to be able to do that more often when you don't have experience. And so starting out as a generalist is usually the way of going about it. And then as your career progresses, you want to become a specialist in whatever it is that you're in there. So an A+ cert might be great for a system admin. It might be great for a DevOps role. It might be great, for server configuration sort of stuff. And so when you get those entry-level dev jobs at maybe smaller companies where they want you to do more stuff like that, where you're like, yeah, you are developing, 50% of the time, but we also need you to deploy things. We also need you to maintain the server. Things like that. Just join the stream, but is this live stream replacing the Saturday stream? It is indeed, Francisco. I am going to be busy tomorrow night, and I can't sleep tonight, so here we go. Sorry, break your hopes and dreams. But yes, that's just what this live stream is about. Then that, sometimes I like to switch it up also. Where I, we'll do it on Sunday or Friday night, because not everyone is in a time zone or has work on Saturday at 11 or whenever it is that I normally do it. So I don't mind switching up the times. Evan Boucher says, have a Red Bull on me, man. I'm trying to quit that caffeine, but I will take your $5. Thank you for that. You're knocking questions out like a champ. Don't let the weekend, No, I'm in a pretty good place right now mentally. I was a little bit frustrated. But instead of trying to hide that frustration and essentially, in effect, being frustrated and holding it within, sort of accepting the fact that I was frustrated, and then just, okay, let's just go through the process and understand and be as professional as we can be. That's really all you can do. And I've been much happier since I've sort of accepted that. But I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. You guys should all be more like Evan. What I mean is that the 37 of you need to give me $5. All right. I'm trying to come up here. No. Give him money for Adderall. No, thank you. No. I'm already jittery enough, man. I need to take in less coffee. Have I ever been in a fist fight? Oh God, years ago. I think the last fist fight I was in is in like middle school. I got the shit kicked out of me. I'm a lover, boys. I'm not a very good one, but I am a lover. Finishing college soon. I've been working in marketing for startup doing web design for about a year. Eventually I want to go full stack. Advice on next steps. Look for a web designer. No. Can you move into full stack at your current work? That'd probably be my first advice, is transition in your current workplace if you can, and go from there. If you can't, start working on your skills outside of work and start applying elsewhere. That's really it. Really the hardest part will be getting that experience. Once you have that experience and you're continuing to grind, do better, you'll be able to get there. Do you really believe the self-taught route is more challenging? To me, it seems that overcoming the financial burden, time commitment, and difficult classes that come with the traditional path is more challenging. I can understand that output, that opinion. But yes, and I'll tell you why. It's about 12:20 right now. But I'll tell you why I truly believe it is. There is the great HR firewall. Okay. The great HR firewall is not easily scaled by those without a college degree, going the traditional path. It is a powerful firewall. It is one that has, for many decades, dominated all careers, and we are slowly beating it down. So how do we overcome that HR firewall? A lot of unique things, and a lot of be able to hold yourself accountable. And unfortunately, Anthony, a lot of people in life can't do that. A lot of people can't. It's the same thing with like anything, right? Where you can go home every day, not like the way that you look, not like how healthy you are, and you don't change anything. And it's, you don't eat different, you don't exercise. It's the same thing with learning, right? There's a lot of people who want to be devs, but they can't. They need someone to hold them accountable, and it's a very, very hard thing for a lot of people. So it's really the two-prong aspect of this: is the great HR firewall, and then the everything that goes along with going the self-taught route, going the route where, okay, I have to volunteer through code.org. Okay, I need to self-teach myself every single day for years. I need to build projects. I need to do all this sort of stuff. Would all that stuff help if you did go the traditional route? Yes. But those are things that you have to do as a self-taught developer, really, at the end of the day. And it is a very hard task at the end of the day for most people to be able just to say, look, I'm going to accomplish this, and I don't need $10,000 a year in tuition to hold me accountable. I don't need or student loans, someone expect me to show up to class or not. So that's really the two main things when it comes to me. And for most people, I would say probably about 90% of people, they can't do that successfully. What if we create a giant group of people trying to infiltrate all the HR departments? I'm with you, man. When your boy's in management, I'll keep a special place in my heart for the self-taught dev. Totally off topic, but you have been a huge inspiration, motivator, and a giant wealth of knowledge for me. Thank you, man. I've been in a job I hate for 8 years and finally reached a place where I can take a job change seriously. Keep going what you do, and thank you for supporting, educating, and promoting a positive community around you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And Dylan Boyce sort of encompassed everything that we're sort of talking about, whether you realize it or not. He'd been in a job he hated for 8 years. It took him 8 years of essentially being miserable, probably poverty, most likely, right? On top of it, you probably most miserable jobs, probably not getting paid well, living that shitty life, right? And I'm not picking on you, Dylan, or anything. Like I've been in the same place, right? So it can be a hard and lonely path, and everyone has to sort of hit their rock bottom sometimes to even get to that self-taught mentality. So it's a very strange thing. And Matt and I kind of talked about this on our last live stream when it was here, about working shitty jobs, right? And going from there. So the youngest and oldest person who got started in web dev? Who got started in web dev? I don't really have an answer for the youngest. Let me think. Does QA count? So I've worked with a couple of 20-year-olds who were like QA. The oldest person, I never asked anybody like when they started and like when they started specifically, but I do know my last coworker who helped me get hired. Essentially, he interviewed me. His first year in the job was like 36. So, are you doing the self-taught route? I am the self-taught route. Yes, I am doing the self-taught. I've done the self-taught route, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. I'll trade you your 6-figure job for my 4-figure job. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it just really shows you like how miserable, even at 6 figures, right? You'll you still hate your job. It's not worth it, and it really isn't. You really need to enjoy this, and you need to enjoy life, right? We're going to spend a lot of our lives working. Most of us aren't going to be independently wealthy. Most of us aren't going to make that money. I don't say this to discourage anybody or tell anybody not to strive to be, to make the cheddar. the bread, to make that Wall Street money. But just statistically speaking, most of us, myself included, are not going to be, bringing in $1 million a year. So when you're choosing a role, not to say that you shouldn't make an educated choice about what's going to pay the bills, because there is a part of happiness that is related to money, the part where you can not have to stress about bills, where you don't have to stress about, food, insurance, where you can pay these things, right? That's one stress of your life that gets dropped. And for the first time in my life, for the last year and a half, 2 years, those are things that I don't even think about anymore. There is no paycheck that is the rent check. I got money in the bank for the first time in my life. I have zero debt. And so you're able to eliminate that stressor, right? Which is a strange thing for most people, right? But when it comes to having to eliminate those stresses, but then still being stressed out by the fact that you hate your job that you go to 5 days a week. So 5 days a week you're miserable. That's not something that you can do, right? So you gotta figure out how you can have the best of both worlds. Sometimes that means you're gonna try a few things, right? So they said that happiness doesn't get any better after 75,000 a year. I sound like someone who never made $1 million a year. I would say that there's probably diminishing returns. 75,000 a year is probably enough to do everything I just said. Where maybe the difference between 75,000 and 150,000, you're like, well, yeah, I'm making more money, I'm saving more money, but in reality, the stresses that you eliminated are already eliminated, right? You can't pay your rent, you can't pay this. So it's I can say, as someone who makes slightly above 75,000 when you add YouTube and everything else, that it is strange to me to think that people can raise a family unless, because it's not that much money. It really isn't. It's not. It's hard. I have money. I save half my paycheck. But it is the idea that if just taking care of April and I actually not bringing in income, the idea that if we had children, and we were making this sort of money, it would be very strange, because I would want to plan for a future. You'd probably be going out more, doing vacations, all that sort of stuff. And I don't know. And by the way, we have no debt, right? So a lot of people are making 75K, have $50,000 in student loans and credit card debt and things like that. And you think 75K is low for combined? I think you're wrong, man. So if we were to say average American family income, the average American family income as of September 2017 is $59,000 in the entire U.S. That's family, by the way. That is combined family. So when you say 75K is low for combined, you're actually incorrect. How bad is AI going to be for web dev? I'm not too worried about it. Especially when cars are running people over. How much CSS should we know to get in JavaScript? Just enough. JavaScript and CSS are not very related. I'm 50K in debt from student loans, but the degree is going to pay off. I hope it does, man. How long did I self-train? I ran 1 mile, did 100 push-ups, 100 squats, or whatever the hell One Punch Man is. Let's see. I was still in school at the time, so I wasn't doing it as much. But when I was still in school, before I dropped out, I was probably about 6 months before I dropped out. I was studying a lot more on just doing like Codecademy and free code camp. And then when I dropped out, I took a job for about 7-8 months, and then I got my first dev job. So whatever you think that is. What is your opinion on the job market in Florida for a junior dev? I'm graduating boot camp in a few months, so I'm nervous about it. I feel like that's something that you should have investigated before you joined a boot camp in Florida. Junior dev roles are always rough. I feel so. Here's the problem with junior dev roles, is that there are a lot of bad developers. That's always the case, and so companies are very nervous about hiring people who don't know how to code. It's kind of crazy, right? You've gone through a boot camp, you have all these projects. There's a reason the whiteboard interviews exist, right? They're going to pay you very well for the most part. But they don't want to be stuck with someone. They don't want to be stuck with someone who just can't do the job. Hence the whiteboard interviews and everything else. Oh, but it's up to your job to convince them they can do the job, right? And that's through projects, that's through passion, that's through a lot of different things. But the good news for you is that once you get that experience and you get better and you continue growing, that the amount of developers that are senior developers and good developers is very limited. And so I'm very hopeful for once you get your foot in the door, which is hard, but if you're smart about it, you should do just fine. But you just have to continue moving forward. You should try and get to the JavaScript aspect as soon as possible, in my personal opinion. A lot of people like to focus and want to quote unquote master HTML and CSS. I would try to get to JavaScript as quickly as possible. Do I still talk to that annoying sanctimonious engineer truth prick? I talk with Matt on a regular basis. I'm guessing you're not a fan. A mock whiteboard interview. Second whiteboard interview video. So I have this amazing 20-minute video for my current workplace where I went, I did I talked about the quick phone interview I had, and then I went and I did a whiteboard interview with them. I came immediately home, like literally first thing I did, I was like, this was an excellent whiteboard interview. It's all fresh. And I bring out the whiteboard. I have it on here and I whiteboard it out, explain the scenario, walk through it, like what a real world whiteboard interview is. So it went very well. And I can't use the video because I work there. And, naturally they don't want people to know about their hiring process per se. But it is an excellent, excellent video. So if they ever change their hiring process, I will post the video. I shall have it. It's on my old computer. I've known Matt for 20 years, man. Literally 20 years. As crazy as that sounds, it makes me feel old as shit. Oh man. All right, guys. So we've been going about 59 minutes here. It has been a pleasure. We did our 1 hour on the live stream. So I usually like to leave with some sort of food for thought. And today we talked about being frustrated, right? We talked about dealing with unprofessional people. And that's frustrating. And This isn't to say that I've even have handled it very well, because there's been at times where I haven't. Um, but it looks like Dolan's coming. Yeah, pretty soon. There's a Dolan video. You can see when the facial hair starts coming out. So what I want to say to you is that it is a challenge to be a professional, and you should expect to be challenged, right? Um, and sometimes you will rise to the occasion, and sometimes you will not. I have not always rose to the occasion. We're all human, and we've all been on the other side of the coin. That's why I suggested that if someone's acting unprofessional, that you try to be understanding. You try to say, "Oh, they're probably not always like this," until they prove that they are, right? So, the reason I say that is because I know I'm not perfect, right? Um, April and I recently got in a fight, and I was completely in the wrong. And in the moment, I was wrong. And it goes for everything in life. Um, and that's the same thing with your workplace as well. And that's why I don't ever suggest jumping to conclusions, right? And being able to sort of put yourself in their shoes for a time or two. So when you are frustrated with other people in your workplace, try to handle it like an adult. Try to handle it as a professional, because there will be times where you will be the one that is unprofessional. God knows I've been um, at times, and you may not realize it. You may not even understand what it means quite yet. So when you're having issues at work, do your best to resolve them as an adult. Do your best to say, you know what? I don't think I handled that very properly when you think about it, right? And don't be your biggest fan. It is easier to, if you're willing to look at what you're doing wrong as a person, as an individual, and I'm not saying hate on yourself, but I am saying to have an open opinion about it, and you're not the greatest thing, then you can always get better, right? Stay humble in every aspect of your life, and some days will be easier than others, but do your best to stay humble and understanding. And if all else fails, just document it. So that's my final thought. Stay humble, be professional, try to be understanding in the beginning, because we've all been on the other side of the coin. And above all else, subscribe to this YouTube channel. I don't know, guys. It is almost 1 a.m. I appreciate y'all. This is the weekend live stream. We do these every Saturday, sometimes Friday, and sometimes Sunday, but we always do them every weekend where we answer your guys' question. I'm going to finish this bottle of water, maybe watch some anime. 40K soon. Yeah, we're about to hit 39,000. We'll hit 40K in about 2 weeks at my current growth. How often I exercise? Not nearly often enough. I'll leave you on that. Bye, guys.